Hello everyone, I'm Keegan83 and welcome to the first chapter in the E3 saga. Well everyone, it's that time of year again. The school year is finishing up, kids are getting ready for their summer vacation, and the newest wave of summer movies is getting underway. It's a good time to enjoy what you like at this time of year. Now, if you're a gamer like me, or any of the other millions upon millions of people, you've probably heard of an event that takes place every year since its inception in 1995. You guys know what it is. It's E3, or in long terms, the Electronic Entertainment Expo. As a gamer for so many years now, makes me feel old, but anyway, I think it's safe to say that every year when this event occurs, people who have played games are always hoping for something great to happen at this convention. Whether it's hope for a new announcement of a new game based on a fan-favorite franchise, an unveiling on a brand new game console or handheld, special reports on a special surprise that's been hinted at for a while, or even just simple things. Something as little as, say, a teaser picture or a video, or heck, even if they want to try a demo of a game that you're looking forward to. E3 is pretty much got you covered on what you're looking for in video games. Now, before we get into everything that I need to talk about for this video and probably beyond, is that I have to tell you something here. By the time this video has been posted, you'll probably notice that E3 hasn't happened just yet. This video is clearly intended to help get the ball rolling on a lot of things. And for the record, everyone, there's going to be a lot to talk about for E3. There's a ton of things to talk about, so don't expect this video to be just one video for all the E3 coverage and impressions that I'm going to be doing. This is a saga for a reason, so expect a multi-part series of E3 related episodes. So without further ado, welcome to the Super Gaming Network's pre-E3 show for 2013. Another thing I'm going to relay is that once E3 is in full swing, I'm going to try and provide news reports using the new SGN newsfeed, which is something that I announced last year, but I'm not getting to until pretty much right about this time. I think it's perfect for this event, and what I'm going to try to do is collect enough info that will hopefully provide and help people to get them into the know on what's going on with E3. Spread the word, if you may. But don't expect my news reports to be right there on the spot, since I'm not going to be able to attend E3, and there's going to be a lot of things to cover, so it's mainly gathering and reporting. So while I'm spreading the word on things like new games and consoles, I'll be recapping as well. So I hope you'll bear with me when I try to get the info out for you guys. Just wanted to get that out there. I've also got an impressions video in the plans for after E3 finishes, so if you're interested in that, I'll be providing and recapping thoughts and reactions on how the show went this year. I may do a few other things in regards to some games that may be shown at E3, but that's for after the convention wraps up, so I'll get to those ideas when I can. So, E3. When's it going down? When can we expect the events to happen? Where can we go for information relating to what I'm looking for? Well, to help segue into what's going on, let's talk about the schedule to help get that out. E3 is actually going to start as early as June 6th at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, with a pre-show event by Konami via live stream. This is something they've done for the last two E3s, making this their third annual pre-show event that they've done pretty much in this form of pre-show format via live stream. Now, to also let everyone know, especially for people who are new to E3, is that while Konami is holding their annual pre-show on June the 6th, it doesn't mean that E3 will officially begin afterwards. The actual beginning of the show starts on June 10th, with some more pre-show events and press conferences, which might even involve Nintendo in a ways. But we'll talk about that as we go through everything. The big press conferences begin on Monday morning, June the 10th, where we're going to have upwards of 4 press conferences to tune into. And to help everyone who's wondering when they'll begin, here's the times of the events and schedule to narrow it down. And keep in mind, this could be subject to change, but so far from where it's looking at this point, everything's pretty much final at this time on when all these press conferences are going to begin. The following press conferences are in order throughout the day, and please note that all the times for the press conferences are in Pacific time. So if you live in a different part of the United States, for example, you're going to have to check the time zones and be able to calculate on when they'll begin in your neck of the woods. So here are the times to help you narrow them down. The Microsoft press conference starts at 9 a.m. Pacific time. If you live in the East Coast, that could be around 10, 11, 12, 1. That could be around 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, for example. So once again, Microsoft starts at 9:30 Pacific time. This is followed by EA, who will be holding their annual press conference at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Then it's Ubisoft's turn at 3 p.m. Pacific time, and Sony brings up the rear at 6 p.m. Pacific time. I'll run through it one more time. Microsoft starts at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, EA at 1 p.m., Ubisoft at 3 p.m., and Sony brings up the Nightcast at 6 p.m. Now, following June the 10th, everything will kick off on June 11th. That's where we continue to really get into the meat of things in the post-press conference phase, where we might find out more about the games that are being prepped for the floor, and the convention will run from the 11th at that point through the 12th, and it will finish up on June the 13th. So that's 4 straight days of E3 that will be in full effect. So I hope when everything starts going down that everyone will be looking forward to something in both game and console related. Okay, now we're going into from what people may be considering what they're looking forward to the most when it comes to E3. We got 3 main console manufacturers and a ton of third-party people. So, for starters, we're going to go into the big 3, Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony. And there's a lot to talk about. And, well, who should we start with first when it comes to the big 3? I think we're going to go for Nintendo first. Nintendo is probably going to be among the most interesting to talk about. So, let's start with the big N, Nintendo. Nintendo, who on a level of degree pretty much won the 7th generation console race, although in some levels and other places some people would probably say otherwise. If, like, say for example, you're a fan of Microsoft or Sony, you would say those two probably won this console race. But anyway, the Nintendo Wii, you have to admit, was a major financial success despite its casual image, with nearly 100 million Wii systems sold in its lifetime. But now we're jumping up a generation. In November of 2012, Nintendo launched the Nintendo Wii U system that's been deemed a successor to the original Nintendo Wii system. Now, as I continue to go into the details on the big 3, I'm going to try and implement both positives and negatives and even bring up some questions and thoughts on each one of the big 3. So please bear with me when I look into each one of these big 3 companies. So, the Nintendo Wii U. What do we make of it this year? The system's been out for almost 7 months now, and surely Nintendo has a big lead in the competition. Well, unfortunately things are not what they seem this time around for Nintendo. Now, if you go a little deeper into the Wii U in general, I actually do like the system. This is coming from my own personal perspective. The system in general, it has actually a nice set of ideas with that gamepad controller, and plus, after many years of complaints by some specific people who know who they are, Nintendo made the leap into the HD era when it comes to consoles. However, despite some initial praise from some developers and launching an okay array of games, it's been a bumpy road for the Wii U. And as a longtime fan, I have to be honest, and plus I don't know if this is harder to take or swallow, and looking at the landscape of the console race, Nintendo is actually not doing well. And with systems in the past like the NES, the Super NES, the N64, and the Nintendo Wii as well being successful machines, Nintendo at this rate with the Wii U system could end up being in last when the 8th generation of systems is in full swing. And at this moment, I'm recalling what I said back in my 2011 recap episode from last year, when I said that Nintendo was in a position where they pretty much had nowhere to go but up, and I watched it recently to make sure I knew what I was saying. And unfortunately, they're still pretty much in that same position. And it's sad to see that after they seem to have a good momentum a bit from last year. And this included the 3DS success. So the big question is, can Nintendo rebound and get the support for the Wii U that it needs, especially since the 3DS is doing so well with its library of games? Well, so far, there have been some movements from Nintendo. over the past few months, and one of the biggest surprises as well, is that Nintendo for this year is definitely worth noting. I mentioned earlier while I was detailing the press conferences that Nintendo might be doing something pre-show related. Well, that's not exactly the case. As we know, Sony has a press conference, Microsoft has a press conference, and with no new hardware system to announce this year, provided I missed something at the time of this video, that means Nintendo for this year, it's all about the games, which makes sense. So how does Nintendo take the first big step to kickstart their rebuilding process to regain their audience and to get back into the game? By not holding an E3 news conference at all. That's right. Nintendo at E3 will not have a news press conference this year, and to some of us, that's a big surprise, and in some people's eyes as well, that's a bit of a disappointment. So without a major news conference this time around, how will we, the gamers and fans, get our yearly fix about upcoming Nintendo games? Well, Nintendo has opted for a different showing at E3 this year. Instead of the traditional style of having an E3 news conference, Nintendo has decided to hold a certain amount of smaller events. They will still have a presence at E3 on the floor especially, but so far the only big difference is no press conference. In place of the press conference is a series of Nintendo Directs and specific announcements and events to help promote their next games. So no news conference, but smaller events, and plus you got to go on the internet especially to help look up this stuff. So it's a little bit more open to the public, which is a nice idea. Cuts off the lame stream, but still, no press conference. Still a bit of a bummer. And speaking of Nintendo Directs, by the way, Nintendo has announced their next Nintendo Direct for June 11th at 7 a.m. Pacific time. So that could be their big E3 showing, in addition to what else they may have planned for the show. And they will be using the Nokia Theater for something, which was the site of their previous E3 press conferences in previous years. Going back a bit, speaking of games, we can already confirm a pretty good amount right now from Nintendo, and this is pretty much geared towards the Wii U system. We're not going to skip out on the 3DS, but the Wii U is apparently getting ready to get some huge support, which it definitely needs. Nintendo is going to show off a new 3D Mario game, a new Mario Kart game, Pikmin 3, which has been delayed at least once, the HD remake of The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, which was a game back on 2003 with the GameCube, which looks okay, but some fans will probably wonder about the newest Zelda title that was hinted back early on before the Wii U even came out. Now, among other games that might be on the floor, and these are pretty good to note about as well, there's Game & Wario, which sounds like another WarioWare game and sounds pretty good. There's The Wonderful 101, which is an exclusive title developed by Platinum Games. That was announced last year as well. Plus, Platinum Games is also still developing Bayonetta 2, which I don't know what the initial impressions are today, but heck, Bayonetta 2 is coming to the system still. Maybe we'll see something on that. There's also some new Sonic games in development for the Wii U. Old news, I know, but I'm saving those details for when I talk about Sega in the third-party games segment, so look out for that when you get a chance. But possibly the biggest game Nintendo has for E3 this year, and what could be considered the game to really recharge the Wii U's life battery, is the newest title in the series, Super Smash Bros. Ever since the game was first mentioned back in 2011, that was one of the biggest positive reactions Nintendo got that year. And let's face it, the last two E3s for Nintendo, they've been rather hit and miss, with announcements involving the Wii U, the way they've been going about with the Nintendo Wii for the last year or two, which was unfortunate because the Wii was doing so well. The last 2 years, especially 2011, was a major down year. But Smash Bros. Was a positive reaction. What can we say about Super Smash Bros. That hasn't already been said already? It's an awesome series, with Melee and Brawl being considered among the best and played for years after they were released, and enjoyed by many fans of the series and in games in general. Nintendo is planning to show off Smash Bros. At this year's E3. I don't know if we'll get to see any gameplay footage, but at the least, we will be seeing something about it this year that's at least in the form of screenshots. So if you're a fan of Smash Bros., or even just someone who enjoys it, look forward to Smash Brothers, because that's always big when a new game in the series comes out. So in conclusion for Nintendo, this is a very important E3 for Nintendo. They know the Wii U needs games, and they need to regain their audience because without any current great games on the system, no one is buying it. The Wii U has not garnered a great lead in the current generation of hardware. If they can get the Wii U fan base revived, then maybe, just maybe, they'll recover what they've lost. But with decisions that have included a lack of titles and delays, and not to mention the whole story about the revenue claiming by Nintendo from the YouTube community, the Nintendo fan base might be more on the fence than they have been in years, if not at all. So fingers crossed that Nintendo will come out with something good in relation to good news this E3. And that goes for regards to the Wii U. And the 3DS? The 3DS is looking to have another great year. That's a good positive thing that's been going on right now. I'm loving how many great games are on the system now, and I'm planning to get one hopefully later down the year. It's that cool to me. So in the end, let's hope Nintendo regains itself a bit this time around. I'm going to admit, I'm a long-time Nintendo fan, and for almost 25 years now, I have been on the bandwagon, and it's just a shame that it's gone down in a direction that's just not that great, especially in the last 6 months it hasn't been that great. Heck, even when the GameCube was around, it still performed better than the Wii U did in its early days, and ultimately, it was a great system, the GameCube, even though it didn't sell as well as the other systems at the time. And I'm sure if I asked a fan of Xbox or PlayStation how they would feel if their favorite company and systems were in trouble, then they would probably feel the same way as I am right now, as a lot of Nintendo fans with the Wii U during the early going of the system. 3DS is great. I'm not going to completely bog Nintendo for the 3DS being terrible. No, the 3DS is great, but without a great home console running at this time, it's kind of sad for Nintendo fans right now. So here's hope that we get some good news, and I hope it's a great amount of games and excitement. Okay, that went on longer than I thought. So what I'm going to do now is split the video here, because I still have the other two of the big three to talk about, and I don't want to hold you guys up for a long period of time waiting for a specific part of the video to load and come into play, because let's face it, not all of us have great internet connections. So to help accommodate you guys, this pre-show is going to be a multi-part series of videos. This is a saga once again after all, and to be honest, this is something that was probably going to happen anyway, because I have a lot to talk about that obviously needs more than just one video, and Nintendo was the big elephant in the room this time around. It was something that I needed to tend to. So tune in next time with the E3 Saga's pre-show when we talk about the next of the big three in the console race. I'm Keegan83 and We Fell in a Tree. Thanks as always for giving me the time of day and watching, and I will catch you on the flip side of the coin block, ladies and gentlemen. See ya.